Yeah, my name is Vic Tapia. I'm the Vice President of Solution Architecture here at BeyondID KeyData Cyber, based out of Dallas, Texas, and I run our solution organization and pre-sales function here.
What is the Identity Command Center?
The Identity Command Center, or ICC as we like to call it here, is essentially our solution and platform to help customers be able to manage their identity and access management programs from an end-to-end perspective. So think about this as a way to be able to discover things in your environment, whether it's multiple identity providers, multiple solutions, be able to implement things, bring your roadmaps into fruition much faster in an accelerated format, and be able to manage all your environments.
What can I expect from the Identity Command Center? Whether I'm managing multiple products or just one solution, how does it make my life easier?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest value propositions that our platform has for a lot of our customers is they have multiple environments. They might have different identity providers, whether it's Microsoft Entra, SailPoint, Okta, Auth0. They have different platforms that are IAM adjacent. And one of the biggest issues that we run into is that they need to go into all these environments individually to identify where things are, right? What is the maturity state on all those, and the ability to have all that consolidated into a singular place where you can monitor those environments. You can identify the information, extract the relevant identity data to help you make those decisions from a road mapping perspective, but also be able to remediate any potential risks or issues that come up. Instead of you having to go through all these environments, you can do that much faster in a singular place. And also, as you're implementing new functionality into your environment for your stakeholders, you're able to do that from within the platform to help you be more efficient and accelerated way, and also manage it from an ongoing perspective, right? From a monitoring perspective. You can also do that in there instead of having to go through every single one of the platforms.
How does the Identity Command Center integrate AI? Is it AI enabled?
So that's a great question. One of our biggest ways that we incorporate AI is ultimately think about how you do assessments generated, right? Generally, when you do an assessment to put together a strategy for your program, you go through a lot of interview process. You get a lot of stakeholders in a room. It usually takes many hours, weeks, right, in order for the service provider to provide you a roadmap. What we've done is we've actually incorporated a lot of different security frameworks into our assessment platform through ICC, so we're able to ask specific questions and provide a roadmap and a maturity state in a much faster manner, leveraging AI to help us identify how do we map your current state processes, your capabilities, to security frameworks such as NIST and CIS, and ultimately that helps alleviate a lot of the assessment time. Instead of going through weeks, we can do this in days.
Is this a good fit for both small and medium-sized enterprises or large enterprises? Does it work across different tiers?
We really are agnostic from a sizing perspective, and depending on what your needs are, can adjust what capabilities and what functionality is viewable. So for a small organization, it might be less pages to go through from dashboards that are relevant to you, but for maybe a large regulated organization such as a healthcare organization, some of the audit requirements and audit things that are required for compliance are also something that we can accommodate for larger enterprises. All right, so here we are in the ICC dashboard page. We can see we've got 3 different phases for ICC. And initially, we start with discovery. We want to understand and discover, identify information from your identity platforms and your identity stack, right? So we start with our discover process. Ultimately, what that means is being able to consume information or obtain information from either directly from systems or from stakeholders in your organization. So as an example, let's take a look at doing an assessment of where you are from an identity and access management program perspective. So in this scenario, we're going to be looking at our digital identity blueprint, which ultimately encompasses being able to assess your maturity state of your program through 4 different pillars: security, risk, compliance, and user experience. And here we can see that this questionnaire, instead of it being manually done, we can actually streamline this whole process through ICC, and we can actually send this out to stakeholders. They can go through each specific questionnaire, fill out their responses, add comments, add any attachments to supplement their findings, and complete the assessment, all self-service without any need of consultants or providers in the room. Once that is complete, overall, we have an ability to be able to showcase and consume that information, take that and identify what is your maturity state overall. So we can take a look at our reporting. What does that ultimately mean? In this scenario that we've done, we see that this organization is at an advanced state at 61% out of 100. And ultimately, we can determine what does that look like from a questionnaire perspective and what risks that we've identified based on the response that we obtained and based on the information we gathered from the environment. So as I mentioned, we've got 4 different categories for a digital identity blueprint, and security, risk, compliance, and user experience are in each of these categories. And for each of the categories, we've actually identified what are some observations, right? What are some recommendations that we suggest you go through? What are some of the proposed initiatives that we should consider as part of the maturing the program? And ultimately, we've also even generated key performance indicators and outcomes, right? So things that can really help be able to solidify buy-ins from stakeholders that perhaps don't really have an understanding of security or identity as a whole. And overall, this is great, but a lot of our customers ask us, okay, well, what does this look like from a roadmap perspective? How do I actually get started, right? I want to be able to mature my program. So here we actually have a view where we can actually take a look at your remediation roadmap and identify, today I'm at a 61.1%, but as we are recommending, this organization to go through three phases of work to mature their program, we can see that if I complete phase 1, I will be at a 65%. And if I complete phase 2, I'll be at 75%, phase 3, 85%, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, we're able to showcase for each individual phase, what is the scope of work? What are the key activities that are going to be required? And ultimately, what are the linked risks to each of those? And then last but not least, we see the duration, right, for security, for risk, for compliance. And then we can also identify what is the estimated cost of that. And the estimated cost encompasses things like licensing, professional services, managed services, even perhaps some third-party licensing that's required. And you can see how that changes from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and so on to really give our customers a total cost of ownership view into a singular place. And this is what a lot of our customers leverage to be able to get buy-in and get funding and budgets from their leadership to be able to fund these programs that we can support them with. So let's take the example that we've identified what our roadmap is. We're clear what our next steps are from a maturity perspective, and now it comes down to execution. We want to really implement some of these findings and recommendations that we have. So that's where the implement phase comes in. So, and from an implement phase, the ICC has ways to be able to deploy and automate some tasks that perhaps would take manual effort from teams. One of the initial pieces that we've put in here together is being able to deploy things like connectors. So think about a way that when you deploy a SCIM connector or you deploy any type of integration from an identity provider to an external source, you have to go deploy that in infrastructure, and there's a lot of configuration and build steps in there. We've actually automated a lot of that. So regardless of what cloud service provider you have, whether it's AWS or GCP or Azure, we're able to actually automate a lot of the deployment tasks to make things a lot faster and quicker and be able to provide that value for your organization. So in this scenario, we've got multiple connectors we've deployed. We've actually initiated deployment from within ICC. We've integrated it with the identity provider, and we've actually deployed it to the pipeline into this cloud service provider itself. And ultimately, what that means is it's bought us a lot more time, and it's reduced the amount of effort and time that it's taken us to deploy these things at large and at scale. And then last but not least, right, once we've implemented some of these changes, right, and it becomes time to manage and monitor our environments as a whole, we get into our managed state, which is our way to be able to manage holistically the organization and your identity stack at any given time, not just a point in time. So let's think about, we deployed a workforce connector as an example. How do we monitor those connectors, right, on an ongoing basis? So instead of us having to go through each of the logs, right, within the connectors, it says wherever they're hosted, whether it's on the identity provider side or in your CSP, we're able to now have a singular place, a singular dashboard that shows me the health of my connector. What are some of the lifecycle management events that occurred? How many users has it been touching? What are some critical issues or priority items that I need to go remediate and investigate? Ultimately showing me what are the issues that we see altogether, what is the connector health of each of them. So think about things like, we see authentications over a 24-hour span. So we see there was, 8,000 SSO authentications, there were 48 failed attempts, right? We see a breakdown of issues. There were 5 attribute mapping issues. There were 4 group syncs that occurred, and what the sync schedule is as an example of a connector. We can also leverage this functionality to be able to see a dashboard of our identity platform as a whole. So if you think about, a lot of our customers have multiple identity providers, right? Multiple things they have to manage, and it becomes difficult for them to be able to manage those on an ongoing basis. And they have to log into each of them, understand what the logs say, be able to understand their health. But here within ICC, we have a singular pane of glass that showcases all of their identity providers. And in this scenario, we've got 2 identity providers. We've got Okta and non-zero, completely different tenants, completely different user bases. But here we can see an Okta tenant that we are pulling information systematically from the backend, leveraging APIs, And we're able to identify some specific findings from that specific tenant. So whether it's agents that are down, outdated agents, some specific activity that's occurred, whether it's updating of policy rules or updating of application objects, we're actually also able to generate health insights and are able to also identify some potential threats that are there. And that's where we leverage AI to help us scour through the hundreds of dozens of logs that would take an organization a long time to go through and identify, is this something that I should focus on? Is this something I should investigate? We're able to do that in a systematic, automated way, leveraging AI to help us identify what are those security threats that are potentially my tenants going through in a singular place, regardless of how many identity providers you have, regardless of how many tenants you have. ICC is here to ultimately consolidate them to a singular place that you can leverage to manage your entire identity stack. So if we want to dive deeper into leveraging some specific functionality or capabilities that ICC has, we'd love to schedule a follow-up demo to go through your specific requirements and use cases to identify how ICC can be best leveraged by your organization.